Call to order the Greenwood Advisory Planning Commission meeting for Monday, February 13th. We'll start at 7:02 p.m. First item is, or actually the second item, call to order. The second item is approval of the minutes.
So moved.
We have a motion to approve the minutes by Monica. Second. Second by Mr. Walker. All in favor, please raise your right hand. All opposed, same sign. Passes 8-0. Oh yeah, we have an absentee. And we also have our light one member. There are no special requests or continuances. There is no old business. Is there any old business from the floor? Seeing none, move on to new business. First item is PC 2022-078 and 79 Chase Bank landscape waivers. JP Morgan Chase is the requester. Gentlemen from Chase, please come forward and give your name and address and be sworn in.
Good evening, my name is Chad Mays with Kinley Horn Associates, located at 250 East 96th Street, Suite 580 in Indianapolis, Indiana.
You swear to the perjury. That's not considered best knowledge.
Yes. I'm here representing JP Morgan Chase Bank, and more specifically the Chase Bank White River Project team. King Colliander with JP Morgan Chase is here. I believe Teron Wright with the Architects Partnership Group, or Architects Partnership is on. We're here to present on the landscape waivers for Chase Bank White River. The new bank is located at 565 South State Road 135 in Greenwood, Indiana. It's on the east side of 135 and to the south of Library Boulevard. The proposed redeveloped bank is going to reside on 1.36 acres. It's currently zoned CM commercial. The proposed building area is 4,130 square feet with 35 parking spaces, 2 of which being the required ADA. We presented on the primary plat back on November 14th with a notice of determination of conditional approval. Here's the overall site plan. You can see that the proposed curb cuts are going to mimic the existing, except for the northwest corner. That one will become just a right-in only. You'll also see that the median and Library Park Boulevard is going to be extended further west, and the proposed detention is going to be located at the northeast corner of the site. The first landscape waiver request is in regards to the required 10-foot landscape foundation planning width. As you can see in the overall landscape plan, the site is constrained by the minimum drive aisle width, required minimum stall lengths. The site's parking lot has the required perimeter landscaping, which also constrains the foundation plan width. Lastly, the maximum building setback, drive-through lanes, and required detention restrict the site's landscaping space. These conditions make the 10-foot strip infeasible. However, you can see that there is plantings shown around most of the building. The second landscape waiver request is for the required 15-foot landscape area between South Indiana 135 and the parking lot. As you can see in the overall landscape plan, the site is constrained by the minimum drive aisle width yet again, as well as the minimum required stall lengths. The 80-foot maximum building setback from South Indiana 135, the required 6-foot sidewalk, and the standard minimum parking lot dimensions constrain the sites and the landscape areas required. These restrictions allow for a distance of approximately 9 to 9.5 feet between the back sidewalk and the back curb. This distance will allow for adequate planting growth. third and final landscape waiver is for the required 1 tree and 3 shrubs per 35 lineal feet of planting along the perimeter parking. Due to the required articulating block along the pond spillway, there's concern that the plantings will not have adequate room for growth. Another location of concern is the existing utility easement on the south property line. This easement contains overhead utility lines, and similar commitments have disapproved such plantings within them. I'd like to thank staff for guidance, clarifications on the review process. As you can see, the excerpts from the agenda show recommended approval for all 3 landscape waivers. If you guys have any questions, Ken, myself, or Teron will do our best to answer them. Thank you for your consideration.
Any questions by the commissioners? Seeing none, we'll take these waiver requests one at a time. The first will be section 10-03-06G, the foundation plantings waiver request. Mr. Nelson, staff recommends approval.
Yes, and a lot of the constraint comes from our maximum building setback line and the amount of required landscaping, parking lot, stall size, drive aisles, and then also having the sidewalk on their site, not in Dodge right of way. It can be difficult to get the sidewalk through Dodge right of way, which is why this sidewalk is not located out in Dodge right of way. For other properties in Greenwood, we would have them located in our right of way. If staff is favorable for, I'll just go through all 3. For all 3 of the petitions, I will note for like the second perimeter parking lot landscaping waiver. Typically, we require a 5-foot perimeter. When it's next to an arterial road, we tack on another 10 feet, making that 15. They are still exceeding the 5. They're right around 10 feet there. So they are still making a substantial effort to be in compliance and have the most minimal waiver requests that they can with their site constraints. And I think the last one, the petitioner did a good job of presenting on that one. Staff is favorable as well.
Okay. Are there any questions for Mr. Nelson or any of the planning staff? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion for this waiver.
This is the foundation plan.
Yes.
Mr. President, I move that the request of JP Morgan Chase for a waiver of the requirements of the Unified Development Ordinance, Greenwood Municipal Code, Chapter 10, Article 25, Division 3, Generally Applicable Regulations, Section 10-03-06, Landscaping and Buffering, G, Foundation Plantings, that specifies that commercial properties under 25,000 square feet shall have a minimum 10 feet wide landscaping strip along the full length of a foundation facing the street to permit perimeter planting around the majority of the building with less than 10 feet in width be approved, and that the Plan Commission find that JP Morgan Chase NA has met the criteria set forth by Greenwood Municipal Code Section 10-04-03K for the waiver for the reasons set forth in its request for waiver and as presented.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Mr. Walker. Before we take a vote, are there any questions by anybody? Seeing none, all those in favor, please show by saying your right, showing your right hand. All opposed, same sign. Passes 7-0. I'll entertain a motion for 10-03-06J2D, parking perimeter, or perimeter parking lot landscape.
Mr. President, I move that the request of JP Morgan Chase NA for a waiver of the requirements of the Unified Development Ordinance, Greenwood Municipal Code, Chapter 10, Article 25, Division 3, Generally Applicable Regulations, Section 10-03-06, Landscaping and Buffering, J, Parking Lot Landscaping, 2, Perimeter Parking Lot Landscaping, D that specifies an additional 10-foot wide buffer area beyond the 5 feet wide landscape area between the parking lot landscaping and the edge of right of way when the parking lot abuts a major thoroughfare, to reduce it to 9.5 to 9.5 feet wide buffer area to accommodate required sidewalk, existing utilities, and maximum building setback be approved, and the Plan Commission find that JP Morgan Chase NA has met the criteria set forth by Greenwood Municipal Code Section 10-04-05I for the waiver for the reasons set forth in its request for the waiver and as presented.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Ms. Gardner? Any questions or comments before we vote? Seeing none, all in favor, please show your right hand. All opposed, same sign. Motion passes 7-0 in favor. I'll entertain a motion for 100306 J2E, perimeter parking lot landscape.
Mr. President, I'll move that the request of JP Morgan Chase NA for a waiver of the requirements of the Unified Development Ordinance, Greenwood Municipal Code, Chapter 10, Article 25, Division 3, generally applicable street regulations, Section 10-3-06, landscape and buffering. J, parking lot landscaping. 2, perimeter parking lot landscaping. That specifies a minimum of 5 feet wide landscape area with continuous row of shrubs and a minimum of 1 tree and 3 shrubs per 35 feet of lineal planting at the perimeter of the parking lot drive aisle. For the area in the existing utility easement and the dry detention pond spillway, because the areas do not allow the adequate growth and trees to create an issue with overhead utility lines, be approved. The Plan Commission find JP Morgan Chase NA has met the criteria set forth by the Greenwood Municipal Code, Section 10-4-5I for the waiver and the reasons set forth in its request for the waiver as presented.
We have a motion by Mr. Walker. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Probst? Any questions or comments before we vote? Seeing none, all in favor, please show by raising your right hand. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries 7-0. Good luck.
Thank you guys for your time. Have a good evening.
Thank you, Mr. Hayes. Next item on the agenda under new business is PC 2022-086 and 087, the Oliver Springs landscape waivers. There's 3 waivers. Please come forward, introduce yourself and your address, and be sworn in.
Hi, my name is Cynthia Olson. I'm a development manager with the Garrett Company. My company address is 1051 Greenwood Springs Boulevard.
Do you swear or affirm testimony that you choose best knowledge?
Yes. If I can figure out how to do that. Yeah, that's perfect. Okay, so as I stated, my name is Cynthia Olson. I'm a development manager with the Garrett Companies. And our office is located here in Greenwood. So tonight, requesting a few waivers to help us develop our multifamily project that we're doing right off of Emerson Avenue. I know we've been to Plan Commission a few times before, so I will give a brief overview of our company and of the project before I get into this specific request for tonight. So we're a fully integrated real estate development company located right here in Greenwood. This project is called Oliver Springs, and it's our 3rd project here in Greenwood. Our first project is The Verge, which is located right across from our offices. Second project is Emerson Point, which is currently under construction, which is also located on Emerson Avenue, just like a mile north of this Oliver Springs project. Oliver Springs is located at 374 Emerson Avenue. It's located between Red Dot Storage to the north and Maple Grove Residential Subdivision to the south. It's approximately 16 acres. This project will have 226 total units for 21 residential buildings. We will also have a clubhouse with a fitness center, pool, and some outdoor amenities for our residents. We came to the plan commission for the property rezone in July. I came back again in November to amend the rezoning commitments, and I'm here today to discuss the landscaping and parking waivers necessary for this project. So today, the 3 waivers I'm requesting is a foundation planting requirement to eliminate that requirement where we have tucked under garages. Second waiver is related to buffer yard requirement for the site, and our third waiver is to reduce the parking stall width requirement. So for the foundation planting requirement, our type 1 building is a 2-story residential building, 10-unit product type with tucked under garages. So each resident has their own private garage. All garages are located on the building elevation that fronts to internal streets. Because the garage is access to streets, we're unable to provide the 5-foot foundation planting required in the UDO. So instead, we plan to spread the required plantings to all other sites of the building. We just can't provide it across this elevation because then you can't access the garages. This is only an issue with our type 1 buildings. We have a few type 2 buildings, which is essentially the same building without garages. So this is only impacting the specific building type. So to be clear, we're requesting a waiver to eliminate this requirement for garage door facades for our type 1 building. Our second waiver is related to buffer yard requirements. So according to the UDO, since the neighboring property to the north is zoned IL, the neighboring property to the south is zoned RA, and the neighboring property to the west is zoned AC, but follows the IM landscaping. We are required to have a large buffer yard of 40 feet to the north, a small buffer yard of 20 feet to the south, and a large buffer yard of 40 feet to the west. Again, we have self-storage to the north, a residential subdivision to the south, and an airport to the west. So we are requesting a waiver to allow us to provide a small buffer yard to the north and a large buffer yard to the south, essentially flipping the buffer yard requirements. We're also requesting a waiver to flip the north. We're also requesting a waiver to do a small waiver to the west. And essentially, we're requesting the waiver for the large buffer yard to be on the south to address neighbor concerns related to privacy that came up during the rezoning process. They wanted more privacy and more buffer between the project and their properties. So the exhibit on the screen shows the proposed buffer yard. So the large buffer yard being orange to the south and the small 20-foot buffer yard to the north and along the west. Additionally, we will also be providing a 6-foot wooden fence along most of the northern property line, and for the UDO, the fence shall reduce the required buffer yard by 10 feet, and landscape is to be installed on the outward side of the fence. So we're requesting a waiver to do the plantings on the inward side of the fence, so our residents can enjoy the plantings. Otherwise, they're just facing self-storage buildings, and no one really gets to enjoy them. All right, last waiver for the evening. We are requesting a waiver to reduce our minimum parking stall width from 10 feet to 9 feet. And to allow for a little bit more surface parking. This will mainly benefit tenants in buildings that do not have the private garages by incorporating a few more parking spaces into the areas that I've highlighted on red on the site plan. This will help increase quality of life for these residents by providing more surface parking for tenants and their guests without impacting any of the usability of the parking stalls. Any questions?
On everything?
That's it, yeah.
Commissioners have any questions?
Oh, will the landscaping amounts be the same on the buffer yards?
I think the amounts are slightly different for a small and a large buffer yard.
Yeah, we do have different quantities that are associated with the different levels of small, medium, and large buffer yards. I will say, abutting the airport, there's quite a bit of existing landscape and plantings.
Yeah, we are keeping a lot of the existing trees in place. And then we are also adding a ton of trees onto the site. I think it's upwards of, I don't want to put a specific number on it without the plan right in front of me, but we are very well landscaped on this site.
Thank you.
How many total parking spots would you have in the project, and then how many added would there be since you're reducing the size to 9 feet?
Yeah, so total in the project, we've designed this, assuming we're able to receive the 9-foot parking stall width. And so total parking provided with that 9-foot is 475. And so some quick math, understanding that it's a foot larger.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's only like 10 spots maybe throughout the property, knowing that it's really just in these limited areas, that it really benefits us.
And then how many total units was it again?
226 units. And on the screen, you can kind of see that our buildings without garages are located right next to where all the red surface parking is. So this is really just a benefit for those tenants that live in those buildings to help give them a few extra spots for guests coming over to visit, family coming over to visit.
Any other question? Mr. Nelson, I understand staff again recommends approval for all 3 of these waivers.
Correct. The foundation planting ones, we have a case where they kind of have a courtyard set up where the front appearing facade is in the rear, and the rear of the building is along a private street, which would require the foundation plantings, but they're providing adequate plantings around the building, so it's not practical to have them next to and in front of the garage areas. The second waiver for the buffer yards, I'll just clarify, they do not need a buffer yard a waiver for the south buffer yard. They're providing more than what is required. That is something that they've done through commitments and working with staff. The intent is that you're adding more landscaping next to the residential houses, and you're kind of taking it away from the area next to the airport, which no one really sees except for people flying into our airport, and the storage building units. Staff did also recommend that the plantings be on the inside of the fence, not the outside of the fence. It'll help them with maintenance. And as you can see from the image, the storage buildings are right up on that property line. So they would really be crammed in there. No one would be able to see for or care for them easily. The last one with the parking spaces, I will also note a lot of these additional parking spaces are around the clubhouse area. So if you have visitors or residents or people trying to tour the properties, it'll help with parking for them as well as residents who live there. We're kind of in a car-centric world, and so I know a lot of people have more than one car often that are living in these units.
Hopefully the pilots will be north or south now.
Yes.
Are there any questions for Mr. Nelson? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion for section 10-03-06G, the foundation plantings.
Mr. President, I move that the request of the Garrett Companies for a waiver of the requirements of the Unified Development Ordinance, Greenwood Municipal Code, Chapter 10, Article 25, Division 3, generally applicable regulations, Section 10-03-06, landscaping and buffering, G, foundation plantings, that specifies that multifamily properties shall have a minimum 10-foot wide landscaping strip along the full length of a foundation facing the street to permit no foundation planting along the garage door and entry door side of the 2-story, 10-unit product type 1 building of the proposed project, because the plantings would block the doors, be approved, and that the Plan Commission find that the Garrett Companies has met the criteria set forth by Greenwood Municipal Code Section 10-04-03K for the waiver for the reasons set forth in its request for waiver and as presented.
We have a motion by Mr. King. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Probst. Before we vote, are there any further questions? Seeing none, all in favor, please show by raising your right hand. All opposed, same sign. Motion passes 7-0. I'll entertain a motion for the second, section 10-03-06I buffer.
Mr. President, I move that the request of the Garrett Companies for a waiver of the requirements of the Unified Development Ordinance, Greenwood Municipal Code, Chapter 10, Article 25, Division 3, generally applicable regulations, Section 10-03-06, landscaping and buffering, buffering that specifies 1, a minimum 40-foot large size buffer yard where an RMC zone abuts an IL zone, to allow a minimum 20-foot wide buffer yard along the north property line of the subject property abutting the IL zone. 2, a minimum 20-foot buffer yard along the west property line that abuts an AC district that follows IM landscaping and requires a large 40-foot buffer yard. And 3, the installation of landscaping on the inward side of the planned privacy fence. Ordinance requires installation on outward side of fence for the proposed project to provide privacy to the residential neighborhoods, or excuse me, to the residential neighbors to the south, because there is a 6-foot privacy fence along most of the northern property line and a portion of the western property line offset 1 foot inside the property line, reducing the required width of the buffer yard, and the installation of landscaping on the outward side of the fence would limit viability of plant materials, be approved, and that the Plan Commission find that the Garrett Companies has met the criteria set forth by Greenwood Municipal Code, Section 10-04-03K for the waiver, for the reasons set forth in its request for the waiver and as presented.
We have a motion by Mr. King. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Gardner. Any questions about the motion by anybody? Seeing none, all in favor, please show by showing your right hand. All opposed, same sign. Motion passes 7-0. We have a third waiver, section 10-03-02E, parking space dimension. I'll accept a motion for this.
Mr. President, I move that the request of the Garrett Companies for a waiver of the requirements of the United Development Ordinance, Municipal Code, Chapter 10, Article 5, Division 3, generally applicable regulations, C 10-3-2, parking and access, E, parking space dimensions and drive aisles that specifies 90-degree angle parking spaces must be a minimum of 10 feet in width to allow reduction to 9 feet in width for the 90-degree angle parking spaces in the proposed project, because the reduction will allow petitioner to increase the number of parking spaces to serve residents and guests, be approved, and that the Plan Commission find that the criteria set forth by the Greenwood Municipal Code, Section 10-4-3-K, for the approval of the waiver has been met for the reasons set forth in the attachment to the written waiver request and as presented.
We have a motion by Mr. Walker. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Gardner. Any questions about the motion? All in favor, show by your right hand. All opposed, same sign. Motion passes 7-0. Ms. Olson, good luck with your project.
Thank you.
The next item of new business is PC 2022-101 and 102 Harmony of Greenwood waivers. Please give your name and address, be sworn in.
Reynolds, Mrs. Berger, Mr. Judy, that's your knowledge.
I do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. President, members of the Planning Commission, good evening. My name is Brian Toohey, and my address is 50 South Meridian. I'm an attorney here representing the petitioner for Harmony at Greenwood, which is a proposed new senior living facility, which we'll talk about here in a second. Here with me is Ryan Lindley, our engineer from Banning Engineering. Thank you for your time in hearing our case this evening. This is an interesting development. It is a 7-acre parcel. I'm sorry. One other item I should mention. Also joining us virtually from Roanoke, Virginia, is Joe Conver, who's the development manager for Smith Packet. That's the development company. And Bruce Hedrick may be on the line also. So we have some the attendees are here virtually, or the developers here virtually. This is an interesting site. It's a 7.2-acre site that's shown on this aerial map. As I mentioned, it's a senior living facility, and when you look at what's surrounding it, right to the north is Indiana Internal Medicine, and then just to the northeast is Lantern, not Lantern Eye Care. That's my typo. I apologize for that. And then to the east is the Greenwood Airport. Of course, the Plan Commission is familiar that this site is not very far from other medical care providers just up the street. What Smith Packet proposes to do, and we're asking to this evening for 3 waivers, 2 waivers that relate to parking standards, section 1003-02 and section 1003-02E like Edward and D like David, and then a sidewalk waiver under section 1006-09. The site is zoned AC, and that's the 7.2-acre site is AC, Airport Commerce District allows for this kind of use. So we're not seeking a rezoning, we're not seeking a variance, we're just seeking some waivers. And assisted living is a approved use under this designation. Here's our site plan, members of the commission. So what they propose to do is build a first-class, high-quality assisted living facility. It would be 4 stories tall. The first floor, ground floor square footage would be about 60,150 feet. The entire building would be about 200,000 square feet. So it's a sizable community. The investment in this will approach $50 million. So it's a very substantial capital investment on this vacant site just west of the airport. There's 3 kinds of residents that would reside in the facility. There would be independent living residents. There'd be about 134 bedrooms of those types of residents. Then there would be assisted living residents. There'd be about 62 bedrooms of those types. And then there'd be about 38 residents of memory care. And Smith Packet has about 40 years experience on the northeast and southeast parts of the United States in developing these type of communities. And what they've learned is in a lot of communities, the parking regulations are overparked, because when you think about it, in an assisted living facility, not very many people, not very many residents drive. Their experience is, even in the independent living facility, only about 10% of the residents drive. So if they have 134 bedrooms, 10% of those residents, if there was 134, one in each bedroom, that would be about 13 or 14 spaces. And in the assisted living, if they have 62 bedrooms, their experience is it's between 1 and 5%. Very few assisted living folks drive. So that's another 3 or 4 parking spaces. And of course, in memory care, there's no driving for those folks. So the point I'm making is, in that type of mix of units, they would expect their residents to have maybe 15, 17, 18 cars total. And then when they have their maximum number of employees on the site at any one time, that would be 50. So between 7 a.m. and 3 p.m., they would expect to have about 50 employees. And so if each of those folks drove a car, there'd be a need for 50 parking spaces. And then if you had 17 spaces from your residents, say 17 plus 50, they might need 67 spaces. But under the Greenwood ordinance, they would need 196 spaces. So what they have proposed is to build 180 spaces. So the difference here is the ordinance requires about 196. We're proposing 180 spaces. So that's a difference of 16 spaces. But when you think about what they need, if you add up 50 employees and 17 from the residences, that's 67 spaces. They're providing 180 spaces. That gives you another 113 spaces for family, for visitors, for guests, therapy, things like that, folks coming in. So they feel that they're really more than sufficiently parked, and I'll show you where they get that information here in a minute. So as I mentioned, it's a high quality facility. They would expect about 210 to 215 total residents. In the 3 different shifts, there'd be 50 employees at the biggest shift. That'd be 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. And then it would go down. The number of employees would go down each shift. The building is 4 stories tall. It would be built of brick, masonry, and hardy plank or cement board siding. Not if there's anything wrong with vinyl siding, but there would not be any vinyl siding in this building. This is a view looking from the northwest, sort of looking southeast. The next slide is a view looking from the northeast, looking southwest. So this would be again the other side of the front door. And this is a view looking at the rear of the building. So this would be looking sort of from the southwest, looking northeast. This is the first floor plan of the proposed residence community. As I mentioned, it's about 60,000 square feet. In terms of timing, if all went according to plan, they would like to start construction in the fall of 2023. They would have their residents they finish construction in the fall of 2025. So it'd be about a 2-year development, as you might expect for a building that size. And they would hope to achieve occupancy in the 90+% range somewhere 2 years after they open their development. It's not an inexpensive place to live because of the quality of the care that's provided. And they would expect the independent living to be around $3,000 a month. They would expect assisted living to be around $4,000 a month, and the memory care living to be around $5,000 a month. We've mentioned at the start of our presentation, we've asked for 3 waivers. 2 relate to parking, 1 parking space dimensions, the other parking waiver relates to the number of spaces. I mentioned that the requirement is for about 196, we're providing 180. And the third one relates to sidewalks. The ordinance requires sidewalks on both sides of the street surrounding the development. And you might recall the Wheatcraft Way stops now. I'll show you a photograph in a minute. It's just a cul-de-sac. And what the petitioner would respectfully request the Plan Commission allow them to do is have sidewalks on most of both sides of the street surrounding their petition. But just up here in the right-hand side, you can see those blue lines. Those are the sidewalks. They're asking to get a waiver not to put a sidewalk on the north side of the street to the right of that dash line. That dash line there that it runs north and south, that's a crosswalk. And the reason they would request a waiver there is illustrated by this photograph. So that photograph was taken by looking really west and south on Wheatcroft Way. And so to orient us, on the photograph on the right, those cars are parked at Indiana Internal Medicine. And you can see between where those cars are parked and the north side of Wheatcraft Way, there's a very steep ditch. I think it's called the Mary Ditch. And it's just a practical difficulty, a possibility really, to build a sidewalk in that short stretch of Wheatcraft Way where that ditch exists. If you come over to the other side of Wheatcraft Way, you can see that's a level area and it's a practical place to put a sidewalk. And so they would ask for a waiver to not have a sidewalk in that short stretch area of Wheatcraft Way as shown on that exhibit. This is another photograph looking, now I'm looking sort of northeast, and you can see that's the building there is Indiana Internal Medicine. The eye care building is beyond that building to the right of it. And then the building to the far right behind that sort of lone tree that's standing by itself, those are the buildings at the Greenwood Airport, the hangars and other office commercial buildings at the airport. So that's where the site would be. And you can see from that photograph, if you look to the left of that earthen mound that's piled in the street there, that's where that ditch is, that very steep ditch. Very difficult to build a sidewalk there. But if you look to the right, it's flat level surface, and there would be sidewalks there and on the other 2 sides of Wheatcraft Way on the west side of the We've submitted criteria to your planning staff supporting the sidewalk waivers. As to the other two parking waivers, this slide kind of summarizes what the parking waivers are about. In the first parking required section, working closely with staff, which we greatly appreciated, in using the city's standards, we need about 196 spaces. We've provided 180 spaces. That's in the next slide or next block, which says provided. And then the staff wisely suggested that we increase our bicycle parking, our bicycle spaces, which reduce the number of spaces by 4 that we would need, and will provide 27 bicycle spaces. So when you distill all that down, we're providing 180 spaces when 196 are needed. But the Smith Packet folks respectfully suggest that even with that, this development has more than ample parking. And the examples they would use is they looked at their sites in Memphis, Tennessee, Bellevue, Tennessee, Louisville, Kentucky, and Tuscaloosa, Alabama. And they looked at for units that were about the same as they would build here in Greenwood. You see in Memphis, there's 196 units. In Alabama, there's 202 units. There's 234 units proposed here. And if you look over to the right, the parking required in Memphis, Tennessee was only 49 spaces. They were cognizant of folks that live in this kind of community not driving much, but they provided 162 spaces in Memphis. In Bellevue, Tennessee, they provided 150 spaces. Louisville, Kentucky, 169 spaces. And in Alabama, 162 spaces. Here we would provide 180 spaces. And given that math that I went through before, where if you combine the residents' cars and the employee cars, they think that that's only about 67, 68 spaces that they would need at their peak times during the day. And they'll have 113 more than that with the 180 they're asking for. So they feel like they're going to be very amply parked for this community. We've submitted criteria. Also, staff suggested that we consider asking for a waiver to reduce the width of the parking spaces to give us a few more spaces. We're respectfully asking for a reduction from 10 feet or 10.5 feet to 9 feet or 9.5 feet. And Smith Packet doesn't believe that'll present an issue to their customers and most importantly to their visitors and family members. The same on a criteria for a reduction in the total number of spaces. They set out that really less than 10% of their independent living folks drive, and they say less than 1% of their assisted living drive to the facilities that we use 5%, and of course 0% of their memory care drive. They refer to the examples of the other communities that they developed over their 40 years of being in this business. We worked closely with Gabe and his team on this, and we very much appreciate their assistance. They reviewed this and recommended approval. There was actually one other waiver which we mutually determined we didn't need, so there's only 3 that we're requesting this evening. A minute of explanation of who Smith Packet is. They're a family-owned business. They have 40 years experience. They developed or acquired over 150 of these kind of communities throughout the southeast and eastern part of the United States. They offer a wide continuum of care from independent living to assisted living to memory care. Their usual communities are about like this one, 200 rooms, 3 or 4 stories with a 65,000 square foot floor plate. They have 24/7 nursing staff. They would provide about 100 new jobs through 3 shifts. It's about a $50 million investment. They're not a not-for-profit, so they will have a substantial impact, positive impact on the assessed value of this site. They don't have school-aged children, so there's no impact on the school system, no impact, very little impact on the traffic other than the folks that are coming there to work. They offer transportation to their residents through shuttles, to grocery stores, doctors' offices, civic events, shopping destinations, and entertainment venues. As I said, it's a very high-end assisted living facility. There's dining rooms, physical therapy, there's exercise facilities, a game room, beauty parlor, billiards room, TV lounges, activity rooms, libraries, living rooms, lounges, chapel. And so they feel this will be an asset to the Greenwood community, and I believe it might not quite serve this level of care at this time. In closing, the approval of these variants waivers will allow for a high quality, very accessible senior living community. It's a substantial capital investment on a vacant site just west of the airport. We would suggest that there's criteria to allow this plan commission to approve these waivers, and the staff has recommended. Thank you for hearing our cases. Questions?
Thank you. Are there any questions? Any questions from the commissioners? Seeing none. I understand, Mr. Nelson, that the staff recommends approval for all three of these waivers, once again.
Correct. Bicycle parking is intended mostly for visitors, I will clarify, but yeah, I have nothing more to add. Brian covered it well.
Okay. Okay, section 10-03-02E, the parking space dimensions. I will entertain a motion.
Mr. President, I move that the request of Greenwood AL Investors LLC, care of Smith Packet Medcom LLC, for a waiver of the requirements of the Unified Development Ordinance, Greenwood Municipal Code, Chapter 10, Article 25, Division 3, generally applicable regulations, Section 10-03-02, parking and access, E, parking space dimensions and drive aisles, that specifies 90-degree angle parking spaces must be a minimum of 10 feet in width, and 60-degree angle parking spaces must be a minimum of 10 feet 5 inches to allow a reduction to 9 feet width for the 90-degree angle parking spaces, and a reduction to 9 feet 5 inches for the 60-degree angle parking spaces in the proposed project, because the size of the property doesn't accommodate the required number of spaces to serve the project without reduction of the widths, be approved, and that the plan commission find that the criteria set forth by Greenwood Municipal Code Section 10-04-03K for the approval of the waiver has been met for the reasons set forth in the attachment to the written waiver request and as presented.
We have a motion by Mr. King. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Probst. Any questions or comments before we vote? Seeing none, all in favor of this motion, please show by raising your right hand. All opposed, same sign. Motion passed 7-0. I entertain a motion for section 10-06-09 sidewalks.
President, I move with the request of IL-AL Investors LLC, company, Smith Packet Med.com LLC, for a waiver from the Unified Development Ordinance, Chapter 10, Article 25, Division 6, Subdivision, Section 10-6-9, Sidewalks A, which requires a sidewalk on both sides of the street in residential subdivision to permit no sidewalk on a small section of ground along the north side of Wheatcraft Way, and that the installation of a crosswalk to cross to the other side of the street instead due to the drainage ditch located on to the north of Wheatcraft Way, which cannot be altered to accommodate the sidewalk, be approved, and that the plan commission find that the criteria set forth in Greenwood Municipal Code Section 10-6-9B and Section 10-4-3K for the approval of the waiver have been met for the reasons set forth in the applicant's written waiver request and as presented by the applicant's representative.
We have a motion by Mr. Walker. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Gardner. Any questions on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor, please show by raising your right hand. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries 7-0. Section 10-03-02D minimum parking standards. I'll accept a motion.
Mr. President, I move that the request of Greenwood IL Investors LLC, care of Smith Packard Medcom LLC, for a waiver from the requirements of the Unified Development Ordinance, Greenwood Municipal Code, Chapter 10, Article 25, Division 3, generally applicable regulations, Section 10-03-03, parking and access, D, minimum parking standards that specifies a minimum of 0.75 parking spaces per dwelling unit for residential care dwelling assisted, to allow 180 parking spaces per dwelling unit instead of 194 for the proposed project, because the majority of residents do not own or drive cars. Employees park in shifts, when the reduced number of parking spaces will provide adequate parking spaces for visitors, be approved, and that the Plan Commission find that the criteria set forth by Greenwood Municipal Code, Section 10-04-03K, for the approval of the waiver has been met for the reasons set forth in the attachment, the written waiver request, and as presented.
We have a motion by Mr. King. Is there a second? Second. Second by Mr. Walker. Questions about the motion? Seeing none, all in favor, please show by raising your right hand. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries 7-0. Mr. Toohey, Mr. Lynn, good luck with your project.
Thank you very much for your time this evening.
Certainly. The next item on new business is PC 2022-100 Vista Hills primary plat. This is a public hearing. It'll be 15 minutes allowed for the presenter, 15 for the demonstrator, and then it'll be twin 5-minute rebuttal periods. Anybody who is interested in speaking on this, please stand and join it.
I'm online if you can
In that case, you
hear
don't,
me.
in case you don't have to stand.
I could.
You swear on penalties of perjury, the testimony is true to the best of your knowledge.
I do, yes.
Okay, can you give us your name and address, please?
Yes, Joseph Heck with Projects Plus, 1257 Airport Parkway, Suite A, Greenwood, 46143.
Okay, please present.
And I'm here representing Hills Acres LLC for their site at 398 South Emerson Avenue. It is located southwest of Main Street in Emerson. It is east of Vista Golf Course and west of Mission Hills Apartments. The owner is seeking to do an expansion on his, he owns 2 tracts of land, and to do an expansion, he's got to plat the lots together to create a platted lot for Greenwood's UDO ordinance. So we're simply asking for approval of a primary plat to combine the 2 lots so we can proceed with a secondary plat and submitting construction plans. That's the gist of that's all we're doing. It's on this small 1 acre lot. We're just looking to combine the 2 lots into one.
Is there anybody here to speak against this? Seeing none, close public hearing. Commissioners, questions, comments? Okay, seeing none. This was brought forth to the Tech Review Committee. Seek approval from the Tech Review Committee. Seeing all this, I will entertain a motion.
Mr. President, for docket PC 2022-100, primary plat Vista Hills Animal, I move to approve the proposed primary plat of Vista Hills Animal submitted by Projects Plus Surveying Company on behalf of Vista Hills Animal Hospital, docket PC 2022-100, subject to the Technical Review Committee condition that all staff comments are addressed because the primary plat complies with standards in the UDO. subdivisions division and to the direct the president to sign in the commission's behalf the notice of determination written findings regarding the approval of the primary plat as prepared by the planning director.
We have a motion by Mr. Walker. Is there a second? Second by Mr. King. Any questions before we vote? Comments? Seeing none, all in favor, please show by raising your right hand. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries 7-0. Mr. Heck, good luck.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Good day. The next item on new business is PC 2023-07 Center Grove PUD zone map changes. This is a public hearing, so everyone who plans to speak in favor or opposed to this, please stand and be sworn in.
Oh, sorry. Juice Riddle, Hills of Perjury. Jude, that's knowledge.
Thank you.
That one down, that's fine.
Okay, could you state your name and address?
We're loaded, ready to go.
Okay,
Good evening, President Shell and members of the Planning Commission. My name is Andy Baroka with the law firm Fakery, Drinker, Biddle, and Reith, with offices at 600 East 96th Street, Indianapolis, Indiana. I'm the attorney for Advenir Oakley Capital LLC, the petitioner on docket number PC 2023-007. With me to present to you this proposal are Paul Lucian, representatives of Ellis Park LLC and Lucian Investment, they're the landowner and co-developer. Scott Weathers with Advenir Oakley Capital LLC, the petitioner and the other co-developer. Chris Crosley with Dell Design, the architects for the project, and Kevin Sumner with Y Engineers. I'm introducing this proposal. Advenir Oakley and the landowner filed this zone map change petition in order to develop a quality mixed-use development on 77 acres at 3111 South State Road 135 at Greenwood. It would be named the Center Grove Park PUD District. It's proposed as a planned unit development is allowed under section 10-03-17 of the Greenwood zoning ordinance. Our client will present here in a moment on the details of this project. I'm here to assert and provide to you that the proposed rezoning from ag and commercial large to PUD complies with the city's comprehensive plan and its future land use maps, the stated land use goals, the transportation and urban design goals of the comprehensive plan. It also meets all the statutory criteria set forth in Greenwood's ordinance, including the current conditions and character of current structures, most desirable use of the land, conservation of property values, and responsible development and growth. Attachment A to our petition, which you have, reflects how we meet these requirements of paragraph F of the PUD ordinance. Now I'd like to introduce Scott Weathers with Advenir Oakley Capital to present the details of the project. Scott.
Thank you, Andy. Scott Weathers, address 17501 Biscayne Boulevard, Suite 300, and that's in Aventura, Florida. Thank you, staff, for all the hard work that y'all put in helping us put this PUD together, and members of the Planning Commission, thank you for having us tonight. Let me figure out. Okay. Start off, I wanted to introduce who we are, and we are a partnership between Lucian Investment. There we go. Lucia Investments, who's a retail and commercial owner, manager with over 42 years of experience in the industry, and Avenue Oakley Capital, which is a joint venture between Avenue Living, I'm Miami-based multifamily owner operator, and Oakley Group, Birmingham-based multifamily owner operator. We combined have 44 years of experience owning, managing traditional multifamily communities, with currently managing over 18,000 units. How do I put that? There we go. At Avenue Oakley, we started our own brand of communities known as LEO. LEO is not the astrological lion, but actually an acronym that we borrowed from the Indiana University football coach, which stands for love each other, or love your neighbor, more importantly. When we began working with Paul and Lucian, we quickly realized that our vision and desire to provide thoughtful, high-end developments in great communities such as Greenwood, and that ideal has remained at the forefront of our minds as we put together this community. And then a quick intro to our design team. We have McKent Architecture Design, and they are Avenue Oakley's programmatic architect and land planner, as well as Dell Design, who is a commercial and multifamily architect working throughout the central Indiana area. Together, they bring high quality design and neighborhood building experience that we are lucky to have steer the layout and look of our community. And to start with the summary of design, at Avenue Oakley, we have developed our LEO brand and have finalized our design. So I'm going to focus primarily on the cottage community, as that is going to be a large subset of the overall community, taking up a majority of the property. But know that when we looked at designing this and put together all of our design components, the requirements, architectural design requirements, we're looking to blur the line between our commercial, our cottage, and traditional multifamily areas, so that as you walk through or drive through the communities, you don't really feel like you're going from a commercial space to a cottage to a multifamily. It feels like one neighborhood. Our mission, this is pretty much a fancy way of us stating what I've been saying. Cedar Grove Park provides thoughtful, approachable rental residences and retail space at the intersection of value, luxury, and top row markets. Right here is our site plan. To start off in the center, where you see the cottage looking shapes, that is going to be the LEO Cottage community. We have currently designed 317 units, clubhouse just over 3,000 units, and a pool space. In that area, you can see in the red buildings with the blue pool in the middle. And then for the rest of the community, we have that will be managed by the Lucian Group. In the lower right-hand corner is in orange. You have approximately 240 traditional multifamily units. And then towards the front, again, the orange buildings up front, you're looking at about 11 acres of commercial space that can hold between 100 and 150,000 square feet of commercial space. And in addition, we have approximately 25 acres of common space, common area, common space that will be available to everybody in the community. This includes 19 acres of open park, which are denoted by the CAA, that's common area A, common area B, and common area C. In addition to this, we're ensuring that there's parking, walking trails that go around all of the, although they're detention ponds, we're looking to add that as being an amenity for those walk their dogs, or just enjoy a stroll going to the retail space from their homes.
Show 135
Sorry.
on the left side.
Well, if you can see that cursor, that's 135. Sorry, they didn't orient everybody on that. That's 135 right there. For this image, this is a sketch rendering that shows the entrance to our community. That I like to utilize this to show what we try to do when we're designing a development, and that's providing walkability, connectivity, and just a space that is friendly to pedestrians as well as vehicular traffic. Within the LEO community, we chose the craftsman style of unit, as it's a timeless, our craftsman style design is a timeless design. It's been around since before the 1900s, and with Chip and Joanna Gaines coming and it is very popular again. It's going to be around a lot long after I'm gone. So as you will see as we go through these images, that's the design we incorporated. And this is 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom unit. A carriage house that is a 3-car garage with a 2 bedroom unit above it. Larger 2 bedroom with an attached garage. 3 bedroom townhouse and twin unit. And one thing I want to point out in all these unit styles is we have different facade styles. So although I just showed you a few units, our exteriors are going to vary as you go through the community. And you're not going to have that barracks or row house style look as you walk through. It's going to be inviting. It's going to have a village green style approach. These are images from a completed community we have called Cottage of Old Monrovia in Huntsville, Alabama. And we wanted to just show you actual imagery of what our streetscape is going to look like and what the community will look like when it's completed. Varying designs, lots of green space, sidewalks connecting to everywhere, pocket parks throughout the community. So we will have pocket parks within the individual communities as well as the common area space. And we're planning on connecting to the existing 6-foot path that's just in the apartment community to the north of us, to connect through our community, connect to those common areas. Class A amenities, both the cottage community as well as the traditional vertically constructed multifamily community will have Class A amenities. The lounge, coffee house style interiors. And then as I touched on, the cottage communities were farther along in the design. We have developed, we have finalized our design, and we will be the first movers. But to create a homogeneous design aesthetic throughout the community, we're taking inspiration from other developments that have incorporated that cottage or that craftsman style design within both vertically constructed multifamily developments and the commercial developments. We will have masonry components, hardy plank siding, and really, as I said, blurring the lines between the different portions of the community. Design, why this is different. Design means optionality. There's been a shift in why people are choosing, how people choose their homes right now, whether it's the increase in cost of a fee simple home, or they just don't want to tie themselves down to a fee simple home. People are looking for rentals, and what our community is going to give them is a range of options between a traditional multifamily community and a cottage style community that has all the amenities of a multifamily community with 10+ on-site staff members, facilities maintenance, concierge trash service, where you pick up trash from everybody's front door. Vertical integration of services. Both Abner and Lucian Group have a history of owning and managing both multifamily and commercial spaces. So we're the developer, we will oversee the construction, and then we are going to be the ones that manage it. So from the start of the project till there's people living in it, you can call me and I'm going to be able to help you either with any questions you might have or steer you to the person that can help you answer those questions. Long view. The partnership is not a merchant builder. We're not looking to build this, get it open, sell it. We have a long view of holding this for the long term and being here for foreseeable future and delivering what people want. It's with both the vertically constructed and the cottage style single family rental community. It provides a range of housing types that is common in many communities. And so this gives people the option. If they're moving, if they're younger, if they're moving to the community, they can live in a traditional apartment. As they have lived in the community, they can train or may get married, they can move into the cottage style. And then as the family grows and they develop equity, they can possibly move into a fee simple neighborhood down the street. So we're looking for residents that are coming here to start their life in Greenwood and stay here for the long term. Who lives here? This is a survey done by Johns Burns Real Estate Consultants, and what we're seeing that will move into a community like this is 26% is going to be your young singles. These are your recent graduates. They have good paying jobs. They might not have the equity to buy a house, might not be ready to buy it, might not be ready to buy a house, or might not just want to get themselves tied down. This gives a great starting point to move into. Next, you have your young families or your single parents. Again, this with having both vertically constructed multifamily and the cottage, there's an array of price points that can provide housing for many different people and family sizes. And then the largest subset, the mature adults, are what we lovingly call the grandbaby chasers. Those are people that might be, those are the grandparents that might be following those young couples with new babies that they just sold their house, made a whole lot of equity on their home, and rather than dumping all that equity into a new fee simple home, they want to move in somewhere where it has a set rate for rent and has a lock and leave mentality. If they feel like going down to Florida during the winter months, when y'all get a little bit more snow, they can leave and not have to worry about their plants dying, not have to worry about a pipe bursting, not having to worry about maintenance outside, because we're going to be there to take care of everything for them. And that's it. We're happy to answer any questions y'all might have.
I don't know if there's anybody who would like to
Yeah.
speak.
Is there any rebuttal to this?
Monstrance or anyone else? who would
Not
like-
straight. Seeing none, close public hearing. Commissioners, any questions?
I have a question. I might not have heard this before. Did you say it was 135 Smoky Row Road? Is that what you said this was going?
Yeah, across from the hospital.
It is north of Smoky Row Road, so immediately north of that on the east side of 135 is the Bowman family, and then we're immediately north of that. And then north of our parcel is the Schwartz property where they're building apartments currently.
What's across? Mr. Probst, Joe?
Yes, I have several questions, if you don't mind. I'm assuming this, you're controlling the whole project. You won't be selling any of these parcels off for commercial builders or building departments. So you're going to control the whole project. And you're going to complete it pretty much as presented.
100%. We will be owning, managing, and holding this property for the long term.
And with that in mind, it's a rental facility. Will you be leasing the commercial out to commercial vendors or businesses?
We actually, Lucian Group, who will be managing the commercial part, is here. Paul, do you want to? I'll allow him to speak to
Sure.
how the management of the commercial will go.
I was having a hard time hearing you back there.
So did you
Were you
take
sworn
the
in?
oath? You swear to perjury, testify is true to the best of your knowledge.
Yes,
State your name and address, please.
yes, it's my home address, or the business address is 5655 Castle Creek Parkway, North Drive, Indianapolis, Indiana 46251.
And the question I had was, the commercial portion of the development, will you be building that and controlling that and leasing it out to potential businesses, or will you control everything to
Yes.
do with that?
Yes,
Okay. And then I have another question about the open space, the common area. Is that only for the residents, or does that include the community at large?
That
And is
includes the community at large. We will not be gating this community whatsoever. Everything is open for all residents of the Greenwood and broader communities to enjoy. So if you might not be able to see it, I don't know if I can zoom in on here. There will be trails going around. I can't, sorry. But if you look above common area A, we have public parking for anybody to utilize, and the trails are going to be going around the pond, that pond, as well as common area B, and people can walk between each of those and enjoy it.
And you have a common area C, is that open space for lawn games?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Lawn games, picnics, hang out.
And then I had another question about, do you have public roads going here, or are these all private streets?
So the interior of the cottage community, which is the center north, those will be private streets. So we will be maintaining those and at our cost, as well as the parking lots and everything within the vertically constructed multifamily and commercial. But the Schwartz Crossing, Cleary, the extension of Cleary, that small portion of Cleary Boulevard North and Pub Street B, once completed and accepted by the city, will be public streets.
And there's a major interchange there with the signaled intersection. I'm assuming that you're tying into that as part of the project.
Correct. Yes, and we'll have to upgrade the signalized intersection to allow for all four ways.
I see. And, well, that takes care of my question. I appreciate it.
Oh, yes, sir.
Any others?
The issues with the planning department over there.
No, planning is favorable of this petition. Just before this meeting started, I did pass out our TRC, our tech review. This is really just a recommendation to go along with the planning report that was submitted to you guys over email and available online. One thing that was mentioned was the trails. One of the conditions that we have is that they'll be incorporating the trail system into the common areas. That is something that they've already verbally talked about and have been working with staff on. A lot of that detail is going to come in the master site plan, primary plat, secondary plat, as we work with the petitioner. But like I did say, staff is favorable. Our comprehensive plan specifically calls for mixed-use development in this area as a future land use. It actually calls it the most desirable land use for this area. This is essentially what they've done. They've provided a mix of uses to make a community where people can hopefully live, work, and play in this area, where the commercial possibly provide for some of their needs. They could, walk to one of the commercial vendors instead of maybe getting in a car and driving somewhere else. It kind of makes more of a 5-minute community for some of them. Obviously, we don't quite yet know what those tenants will be, but it is a land use that we want to encourage in this area.
I have one question for you, Dave. I see where they said they're okay with 500-foot spacing for fire hydrants. I mean, is that something we can commit to, or is that locked in? Because I'm with a fire marshal, like, don't bend from that, as close, especially as close as these are to each other.
Yeah, so it's a kind of a unique land use that they have here. Where, we have two different requirements. We have the 300 feet for, I'm gonna mix this up, but
I think it's 300 for multi-use.
correct, and 500 for residential. So the cottages are rentals that are multi tenants. It's one parcel, but it functions like a residential street that you might see. The fire marshal talked with them about how to handle this, and they've actually incorporated it into their proposed ordinance for this planned unit development. So the commercial areas will have the 300-foot spacing. The residential cottages will be the 500-foot spacing, like you would see in a residential subdivision with single-family homes.
And the trail should be a condition of motion.
Well, I wanted to talk about that because in the staff report, you have recommended conditions. Is that right?
That's correct.
We're following conditions, and we need to be clear. People get confused. There's a difference between a condition and a commitment. And a condition is typically something that has to be met, has to be complied with in like a phasing of the development before you can move on and do the next thing. A commitment is something that needs to be reported in the chain of title to run with the use of the land and the development of the land, and it has to be perpetuated for always. sometimes people mix those up and they get those interchanged. And I just want to make sure that you're clear on if these are really to be conditions or commitments.
So they are to be a condition. All conditions are to be addressed before the land alteration permit is released. That is not released until after the master site plan approval is complete, which will ultimately come back through, and you guys will see it again for the master site approval before we can issue any land alteration permit.
Broker, did you have something to say?
Yeah.
Just let me stand up there.
Mr. Jones, I agree with you and understand the legal distinction between those. These really do seem more like conditions, right? That we will work with staff on what the ground signs look like, right? Those would not be memorialized in a deed restriction or something like that. So again, we have worked with TAC on these plans substantially. And so I think that the conditions not covenants or commitments yet. Any of those that could come up or that you think should be, where I'm happy to talk about it. We haven't gotten to a point of traffic calming devices yet. Still some of those things to work through. So while they're conditions, because they're still conditional, we've not done them yet, but we have to in order to get any further approvals clearly from the city, especially in ILP.
Just want to make sure everybody understood, and when this gets to the common
Good
council,
point.
making sure the common council understands. Because
They're not here.
they're not, but there will be an ordinance that this PUD will be an attachment to, and a lot of times they will wire these commitments that we're making the report, so we'll just make sure that everybody understands that.
Yes, good point.
Well, and is there any other questions? Or well, then I would then remind you of the statutory criteria, because this is a zone map change. You are to pay reasonable regard to the following. We covered it. In making your recommendation to the common council on this petition: 1, the comprehensive plan; 2, the current conditions and the character of current structures and uses in each district; 3, the most desirable use for which the land in each district is adapted; 4, the conservation of property values throughout the jurisdiction of Greenwood; and 5, responsible development and growth.
Any questions or comments from the commission? If not, I'm willing to accept a motion.
Mr. President, I move that the petition of Advenir Oakley Capital LLC for the rezoning of approximately 77.17 acres located at 3111 South State Road 135 within the city of Greenwood, Johnson County, Indiana, from CL commercial large format zone and AG agricultural district use to planned unit development district use, Center Grove Park PUD mixed use commercial multifamily vertical and multifamily cottage subdivision as set forth therein. Receive a favorable recommendation from this commission to the Greenwood Common Council, and the same be certified to the Greenwood Common Council in the form presented.
Subject to the 5 conditions of the recommended by staff.
Yes, subject to the 5 conditions. Like that, whatever she said.
We have a motion by Mr. King. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Probst. Any other questions or comments before we take a vote? All in favor, please show sign by raising your right hand. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries 7-0. Good luck, gentlemen.
Thank you for the recommendation. Thank you.
We have one more thing on our new business that wasn't listed on the agenda. And that is, we need to nominate a citizen member.
No,
No?
I don't think you're ready to do that.
Oh, it's something needs to be done. We may not be ready tonight.
Right, because we're still waiting for the vacancy to be filled. This is my understanding of the other citizens that are not available to actually do the BZA. Right, so, yeah, I'm getting like, of the other citizen members who remain up here that might be appointed, it's my understanding that their
I already do it.
schedules do not permit that.
That's Montgomery Walker.
Yeah, Mr. Walker, Mr. Gardner, Ms. Magna, yes. So I don't think that they're able to serve
So
with their other commitments.
without a motion, we'll table it this time.
Well, I don't think you need to, I mean, you can bring it up and appoint someone when you have someone. I don't think that you're tabling anything. You'll just
Okay.
bring it up for business. You think you have a citizen member that might be able to.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Is the floor gone? Is there any new business from the floor?
Floor has left.
Seeing none, are there any announcements?
What else is at this time? Yes, we have a agenda for next week.
2 weeks.
27, 2 weeks.
Move to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Gotta sign our papers.
We have to receive our.
Stay ready. Look at our sheet.